My friend group had an unspoken dress code nobody voted on. Same 3 colors, same shoes, same everything. When I showed up in yellow one Tuesday, the silent judgment nearly ended me. Then I found out they had been copying me for 2 months without even realizing it. I showed up to school in yellow, and my entire friend group looked at me like I had personally insulted their ancestors. Not even allowed yellow. A soft, buttery, perfectly normal yellow cardigan, with white jeans and my white sneakers. I thought I looked good. I even checked in the mirror twice before I left, which for me is basically a runway confirmation. That was a Tuesday in October. The Tuesday that started everything. Act 1. Daily life. Okay, so here's the thing about my friend group. There were 5 of us. Me, Priya, Dani, Keely, and Soleil. We'd been friends since the first week of 6th grade, which in middle school time is basically like being childhood besties who survived a war together. We sat at the same cafeteria table every day, 3rd from the left, 1 seat from the garbage cans, which sounds bad but was strategic. The lunch monitor never walked over there, so we could be as loud as we wanted. We had the same lunch period. 3 out of 5 classes together, and a group chat called The Five, with messages going back so far, our oldest ones came from cracked screen, no case iPhones. Point is, we were close, finish each other's sentences and steal each other's fries without asking close. But here's what I didn't notice for a long time, and I mean a genuinely embarrassing amount of time. We had started dressing like a uniform without anyone ever announcing a uniform. It started sometime in late August. Priya started wearing low-top canvas sneakers in white or cream. Then Dani got a pair. Then Keely. Then Soleil. I didn't think anything of it because I'd had mine since the summer. We follow similar accounts. It happens. Then it was the color palette. Navy, cream, and rust orange, exclusively. Priya in navy hoodie and rust joggers. Dani in a cream turtleneck. Keely with that rust bucket hat she wore every single day. Soleil in the navy rib tank under an open flannel. And me, already wearing those colors. Had been since September. I thought we were all just vibing with the same fall aesthetic. By October, I was so used to it, I didn't even notice we looked like a low-budget music video with a very consistent brand identity. That was daily life. Tuesday at 7:52 a.m. shattered it. Act 2. The cracks. I saw them at the lockers before first period. Priya in navy. Dani in cream. Keely with the rust bucket hat. Soleil in an oversized navy jacket she'd safety pinned at the collar. And me in yellow. Priya saw me first. Her expression didn't do anything dramatic. That was the thing. No gasp. No laugh. Just a pause, like a loading screen. Then she smiled, a little too deliberately, and said, "Oh, hey, cute cardigan." The way she said cute had a very specific texture. Not mean. Just surprised. Like someone trying a food they didn't expect and saying, "Oh, interesting," instead of good. Dani looked me up and down once, then went straight back to her locker. She didn't even bother with a word, which from Dani, who always has a word, felt louder than anything she could have said. Kylie said nothing and adjusted her bucket hat. Soleil said, "Oh, I love yellow on you, Maya," which was genuinely sweet, but also carried the slight energy of, "You are clearly lost. Let me be kind about it." I stood there and felt the temperature of the situation without being able to name what the temperature was. We walked to first period, Mrs. Albright's English class, and I noticed it then for the first time. Actually noticed it. Dani's cream ribbed cardigan, Priya's navy crew neck, Soleil's rust orange scrunchie, Keely's whole rust bucket hat situation. Then I looked down at my yellow cardigan and something clicked. We were a palette, and I had broken it. Nobody said anything. That was somehow worse than if someone had. We took our seats and Mrs. Albright started the lesson. Unreliable narrators using Gone Girl as the anchor text, talking about how a narrator can believe their own version of events so completely they never question it. Looking back, that was genuinely ironic. I spent the first 10 minutes staring at the whiteboard while internally replaying Priya's cute cardigan on a loop. And then I started thinking something worse. What if this wasn't one weird day? What if I'd been missing something for weeks? By third period, Mr. Vasquez's social studies class, I had developed a theory. The theory was, I had committed a social crime I didn't know existed, and everyone knew the law except me. I opened Instagram under the desk. Mr. Vasquez only notices if you laugh. September 4th. Me in cream canvas sneakers. Priya still in her old chunky platforms. September 11th. Me in navy and rust. The rest of them in various different things. September 19th. Group photo outside the gym. Me in the navy rib tank. Priya had just started wearing white sneakers. September 28th. Me in the rust orange zip-up. Dani in cream. Kylie in navy. October 3rd. All 5 of us. Navy, cream, rust in some combination. I stared at those photos for 3 full minutes. There was a pattern. I could see the shape of it. But it scared me a little how clear it was becoming. Because if the pattern meant what I thought it meant, if I was somehow setting the tone for what everyone else wore, then the yellow cardigan wasn't just a fashion misstep. It meant something weirder than that. Something I didn't have words for yet. I put my phone away when Mr. Vasquez started walking our row. But I kept thinking. And underneath the thinking, something smaller and quieter. I was afraid. Not of the theory, of what happened if I was wrong, because if I tested this and the pattern broke, if I wore something new and nobody followed, then I'd just be a girl sitting alone with a crackpot theory and a yellow cardigan, and the real explanation would be something much simpler, that they'd all moved on stylistically and maybe otherwise, and I was the last to know. That fear sat in my chest all the way through to lunch. Act 3, quiet preparation. I'm not the kind of person who confronts things head on. That's Dani's whole personality. I'm more of a sit with it, observe, wait until I have the full picture kind of person. My mom calls that being thoughtful. Priya calls it being sneaky. I prefer strategic. So I didn't bring up the yellow cardigan at lunch. I let it go quiet and I watched instead. On Wednesday, I wore my old chunky brown loafers, the ones I'd had since 7th grade. They were not cool in any current, intentional way. They were just the shoes I'd grabbed. I wore them without comment, without context, just as a thing I decided to do. By Thursday, Priya was wearing her sister's brown Mary Janes. By the following Monday, Dani had brown platforms. I didn't say anything. Friday of that same week, I wore a forest green ribbed beanie I'd found in my mom's closet. A little old-fashioned, but I genuinely liked it. I wore it like I'd always worn it. By the next Thursday, Kili had a green headband. Salal had worked dark green liner into her eye look. I still didn't say anything. But here's the thing. It almost fell apart before it proved anything. The Monday after the green beanie, I wore a rust-colored vest. Old piece, from the back of my closet. I thought, this will confirm it. Something new, something specific. And within a week, someone will be wearing rust. But nobody did. Tuesday, nothing. Wednesday, nothing. By Friday, I was second-guessing everything. Maybe the loafers were coincidence. Maybe the green headband was a headband Kili had owned for a year. Maybe I had built an entire theory out of pattern matching the way people do when they want something to be true. I went home Friday and sat on my bed and stared at my ceiling and thought, okay, so I'm wrong. I'm just wrong, and I've spent 2 weeks sneaking phone checks and social studies for absolutely nothing. But Saturday morning, Priya texted the group chat a photo of herself in an outfit, rust vest. Similar cut to mine. She thrifted it. She wrote, "New find. Obsessed," with a fire emoji. Dani immediately replied, "Where?" Kili sent a row of heart eyes. Salal said, "Rust is so your color." I read those messages and sat very still for a moment. The vest had just taken longer. That was all. It had taken a week and a half instead of 5 days, and I'd almost abandoned the whole thing on day 9. I went back to my notes, adjusted the timeline, and then I made a new plan. One that actually required me to do something. Act 4, the experiment. Here's the thing about quietly logging observations in your notes app. It doesn't tell you anything you don't already suspect. You need evidence that means something. Evidence that requires someone to make a choice. So I decided to make the choice visible. I would wear something impossible to explain as coincidence. Something so specific and odd that if anyone copied it, they'd have had to consciously decide to. And I'd do it in front of all 5 of us, so there was no chance of missing the response. I went through my closet for an hour. 2 on trend, and it blurs together. Too weird, and people avoid it entirely. It needed to be the right kind of odd. I found it at the back of a shelf. A pair of bright yellow knee-high socks. Not the cardigan yellow, louder, more committed. The kind of socks that said, I made a deliberate choice and I stand behind it. I was going to wear them to Priya's birthday hangout on Saturday. All 5 of us. Priya's living room, movie, and pizza. 4 people in one room with no distractions, nowhere to be, and plenty of time to look at each other's outfits. Friday night I texted Priya, so excited for tomorrow. "What are you thinking vibe-wise, cozy or cute?" She said, "Cozy. It's literally a movie night, Maya." I said, "Cozy it is." I set out my outfit. The yellow socks. Dark jeans. A simple cream sweater, so the socks were the only statement. I looked at it for a while. Then I thought about what happened if I walked in and they all looked at the socks the way they'd looked at the yellow cardigan. That same loaded pause, that same careful cute. And the answer this time was that Priya had specifically said cozy, and knee-high yellow socks are objectively not cozy adjacent. And if I showed up like this, I might just look like I'd gotten dressed in the dark. I almost put the socks back. I held them for a solid 30 seconds. Then I thought about Priya's rust vest on Saturday morning. 10 days I'd almost thrown away. I folded the socks into my bag. Act 5, the confrontation. Priya's living room. Saturday at 4 p.m. Candles, blankets, 3 pizza boxes. The kind of hangout that feels warm and easy the way only long friendships can feel. I walked in last. I always walk in last. I kicked off my shoes at the door, and that was when they saw the socks. Kili's eyes went straight to them. Not in a bad way. More like the way your eyes go to anything bright and unexpected. She didn't say anything, but she looked. Dani said, without even pausing, "Are those knee socks?" The way only Dani says things. Direct. No softening. Just the question sitting there naked in the room. "Yeah," I said. "Found them in the back of my drawer." Felt like a choice. Salal tilted her head with this little smile she does when she's genuinely charmed by something and said, "I kind of love that, actually. They're very bold." Priya looked at them for a moment. Then she said, you know what, they work. And she meant it. I could tell because when Priya is being polite, she doesn't quite make eye contact. This time she did. The night went on, movies and pizza and the group chat lighting up even though we were all in the same room, because that's just how we are. But I was watching, quietly the way I'd been watching for 3 weeks. And then, near the end of the second movie, Keely reached into her bag and pulled out a pair of socks to swap because her feet were cold. She held them up to check which pair she grabbed. They were yellow. Not the same yellow, not knee-high, just ankle socks in a pale gold. She pulled them on without comment. It might have been coincidence. She'd reached into her own bag and grabbed a random pair of socks. But here's the thing. The week before, I had been at the mall with Priya, and in the accessories section, while I was looking at hats, Priya had stopped at a display of socks and said, oh, these are cute, and picked up a pair of yellow ankle socks. She'd put them back. But she'd stopped. And there was Keely. Yellow socks, like it was nothing. I looked across the room at Priya. She was watching the movie. Her expression was relaxed and easy and totally unreadable. And I thought, okay, it's her, not me. Act 6, the revelation. The understanding didn't arrive like a light bulb. It was slower. More like a light already on in another room, and me finally turning to look at the door. Priya was the one who had written the first sentence. She was the one who'd worn white canvas sneakers in late August before any of the rest of us. She was the one who'd anchored the palette. Navy, cream, rust. And I realize now that when I thought I'd started wearing those colors first, what had actually happened was that Priya had been wearing them first. And I had followed, and then I'd followed so completely and so naturally that, by the time the others started following me, I'd forgotten where I'd gotten the idea. I was a middle link, not the origin. And that meant the yellow cardigan. My yellow cardigan, my confident, buttery, runway-confirmed Tuesday morning yellow cardigan, had not been a uniform violation. It had been genuinely off-palette. I had been the only one not quietly tracking Priya, and I'd shown up in yellow, and everyone had noticed, and the silence had been real. I sat with that for a while. On Sunday, I texted Priya. Hey, can I ask you something weird? She said, always. I said, do you think about what you wear to school? Like, intentionally? Like with us in mind? There was a longer pause than usual. Then she said, I mean, kind of. Is that weird? I said, no. I'm trying to figure out something, and I think you're the answer. Another pause. Then she said, come over. Act 7, Priya's living room, take 2. She was on her bed with her knees pulled up when I got there. No candles this time, no pizza. Just Priya in a cream hoodie with rust drawstrings, which I noticed immediately and almost laughed. I showed her the notes app, the actual thing. Dates, observations, timeline. The loafers, the beanie, the vest that took 10 days, the yellow socks. All of it. She read it in silence. Her expression shifted once, when she got to the rust vest entry. And she looked up at me and said, I genuinely did not know I'd waited that long. Priya, what? You're the one doing it, not me. I've been watching myself for 3 weeks, and it's you. You started the sneakers. You set the palette. And then I followed you without realizing, and everyone followed me without realizing, and it went in a circle. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, very carefully, Maya, I started wearing white sneakers because of you. You wore yours on the first day of 7th grade. I remember because I thought they looked good, and I went home and found a pair. I stared at her. First day of 7th grade, I said. I wore those on the first day of 7th grade. Yes. That was over a year ago. Yes. We both sat there for a second. So, I said slowly, neither of us knows who started it. I think. Priya said, it might have always been both of us. Like a loop. You do something, I notice. I do something, you notice. And by the time the others are watching either of us, it's already been through the loop twice. I thought about that. The Instagram photos. The dates. The way the palette had locked in over 6 weeks like a slow, quiet consensus that nobody had called a meeting to approve. The yellow cardigan, I said. Yeah, she said. That was just actually yellow. We were in navy and rust, and you showed up in yellow, and it was just a lot. Priya. You said cute cardigan. I-S cute. It was just a lot. I laughed. Actually laughed. And she laughed. And it broke something open that I hadn't realized had been sealed. So nobody was mad, I said. Nobody was mad, she said. We were just surprised. You're usually in the palette. I didn't know there was a palette. None of us voted on a palette, Maya. So how does it have rules? She shrugged. She looked a little sheepish. I don't know. It just does. Like the lunch table. No one decided which table. We just went there on day 1 and kept going back. I thought about the third table from the left. 1 seat from the garbage cans. Strategic positioning that had never been announced, never been debated, just chosen once and held on to. Okay, I said. So we're all just pattern-forming creatures who have been quietly syncing our wardrobes for a year without any of us realizing it's happening. Apparently. That's kind of beautiful, I said, and also deeply unhinged. Both, Priya agreed. Act 8, 8. After. I wore the yellow cardigan again the following Tuesday. I did it on purpose. No mirror check twice. I just put it on, ate my cereal, and went to school. At the lockers, Priya saw me first. Her face did something different this time. Not the loading screen pause. Just a small, warm, knowing look. She was wearing a yellow scrunchie. Danny glanced over and said, "Oh, we're doing yellow now?" Not mean. Just Danny. Just the question. Sitting there, honest and direct. Salal said, "I have a yellow top I've literally never worn. This is my sign." Keely adjusted her bucket hat. Still rust, always rust. And said, for the first time in this entire story, something completely unprompted. "I'm staying in rust. Yellow is not my color. I don't care what we're doing," which made all 5 of us laugh. And standing there in the locker hallway, laughing, in a soft, buttery yellow cardigan that had started 3 weeks of quiet observation and a revelation about how people who love each other unconsciously build a shared language out of small daily choices. I felt something warm and specific that I hadn't felt since before that first Tuesday, like I was exactly inside the pattern, not breaking it. I'd been there all along.